Well, I just want to thank you for agreeing to this, and I hope we can cover your thoughts and your reminiscences. I think there'd be basically three parts to this. First would be your personal history, and then the part that you had 17 years in the city solicitor's office and 30 years in the Commonwealth Court, 3 years on the Superior Court, and
No, 5 years on the Superior.
Oh, you got 5 years. Okay, that messes up my math. Okay.
And I had 30 years on the Commonwealth. Yeah.
30 years on the Commonwealth Court, right? And
28 as a commission, 2 as a senior.
Okay. And that brings you to a total of 54 years of public service with 2 in the military. 17.
Well, if you count the time, I actually became an assistant in the city solicitor's office in 70. And then I went away to the Army.
Okay. I still only come up with 54 at that point.
1970, yeah. You're
Okay.
right.
Okay. Well, anyway, you want to...
It's really a year earlier because I started as a law clerk in 69, but let's not get technical.
Okay. Good point. You want to talk anything about your family background?
Anything you want. Are we starting now or what?
Yeah, we're starting now, I assume. You grew up in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And you, as I recall, you have mother, father, of course, and you have a brother and a sister, and there's one more. Is it another brother?
Yes. Okay. I grew up in Pittsburgh. I obviously had a mother and a father.
Right.
And I have 2 brothers and a sister.
Okay. And where was what part of Pittsburgh did you live in?
In the Highland Park section.
Highland Park section. And what school district did you go to? The Pittsburgh School District, I assume.
Yeah, I didn't go to the Pittsburgh schools.
You went to the Catholic School District.
That's right.
And you went to Central Catholic?
First I went to Sacred Heart.
Okay.
And then I went to Central Catholic.
Okay, that was your high school years.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And then did you go into the military right after that?
No, I went to college.
You went to Duquesne.
Yeah, I went to college at Duquesne and went to law school at Duquesne.
Okay.
And then I went to the military.
Then you went and you had 2 years in Turkey, is that right?
No, I had 1 year at Fort Sill and 1 year in Turkey.
Okay. And any reflections on any of these experiences, your family background, your educational background, or your military career?
Well, there's actually a lot to say, but I don't know how much. I grew up at a time when there were a lot of kids, where people knew each other. I think what's unique is that both my mother and father, their first languages were Italian. And we grew up in basically a Jewish Italian neighborhood. Mm-hmm. It wasn't unusual to hear Italian spoken. In fact, that was my mother and father's first language. Generally, the kids in my neighborhood went to the public schools, but my mother decided that I was going to go to Sacred Heart. There was 2 other Catholic schools that I could have gone to. Alpha Christian, which was the Italian church, Italian school. St. Peter and Paul was the German school. And Sacred Heart was the territorial school, but it was the church where the Irish said, "I'm here.
Okay.
Look at us." And it is a cathedral church. And I could have, all those other schools, including Dilworth, which was the school at the end of my street that I could have gone to. But my mother said, "You're going to Sacred Heart because that's the best school." And I got on a bus every day and went to, for the 8 years of grade school, the 73 Highland, and went to Sacred Heart. And what I think that's important is that Sacred Heart, you met all kinds of people. There were, it was the Irish elite of Pittsburgh, which are probably 2 generations ahead of the Italians. And you met just all kinds of people, people that had a lot of money, people that had no money. And it was a good experience in just seeing things. And that was, and we had the Sisters of Charity there who my wife is on their retirement board, and the maid of honor in our wedding was a charity. And in fact, the hospital that I was born in was a Sister of Charity hospital, Pittsburgh Hospital. And so I've got a very good education at Sacred Heart, both socially and educationally. And quite frankly, I don't know if I should be a little bit schizoid, because I had this ethnic background and went to this really different kind of Irish church. So it was a great experience. Then I went to Central. And Central at that time only took 40% of the boys. I can remember being in first grade where the nun said, "If you don't study, you're not going to Central." So you went to Central, and Central in itself was a very rigorous place. After the first year, they flunked out a third of the kids.
Wow.
So we started with about 410, and we ended up with 255. And they couldn't have gone much more over that because the school didn't have the capacity. There was probably 1,000 kids in the school, and if they didn't reduce the load, they wouldn't have had room. But that was intentional. The good thing about Central, it was cheap. All these Catholic schools were cheap. It was affordable to everybody. So that's my grade school and high school years. And at Central, you met every kind of kid because they came from all over.
Yeah, as I recall, Pittsburgh back then was a very ethnic town.
Yes.
Ethnic city, very much so. And I think that still exists, but I think the suburbanization of the suburbs really changed Pittsburgh.
It doesn't exist to the extent because you don't have large families, and because everybody moved out, and quite frankly, everybody intermarried.
Yeah. So after Central Catholic, then you went to Duquesne for 4 years?
Got on the same bus streetcar, 73 Highland, that took me to Sacred Heart, took me to Central, and went to Duquesne.
Okay. So you didn't have to pay much for bus fare, is that right?
I had to pay for the bus fare, but it was the same bus.
Okay. And how did you what sort of education did you get at Duquesne?
Well, back then, I think one of the differences in college education is that people go places. You know, I know my daughter's friends, they go all over the East Coast. It's not just, when I was getting out of college, going away to school was going to Ohio or Westminster, which is 60 miles away. Don't forget, this is before the interstates. And even now, people tend to go within 1 day of travel from their home. So 1 day of travel was a lot less. And quite frankly, I went to Duquesne because it was the cheapest.
Yeah. And then you graduated. Were you spurred on at Duquesne University to go to law school?
No, I always wanted to know to go to law school.
Okay.
I think I got a very good education at Duquesne, mainly because most of the kids came out of Catholic schools. And that was at the peak of Catholic education. And they were all very rigorous. Because I can remember probably 50 kids from Central went to Duquesne.
Yeah.
And I knew a lot of girls from the Catholic high schools in Pittsburgh. At that time, Duquesne was largely a commuter school.
Yeah. So a lot of people were coming in from the suburbs to go to Duquesne?
Yeah, they were coming in from all the Catholic high schools to go there. It was strange in that you had a very, I think, intellectual attitude that I don't know if it exists on colleges. We had a bunch of German and Belgian people on campus. And what's the guy's name? Werner Herzog. He did the movie guy. He did documentaries, Fitzcarraldo. But anyway, he went to Duquesne, didn't enjoy his experience. But there was a lot of Germans and Belgium people there. And I think a lot of them were older. And I think all of them still had the effects of World War II and were still processing that.
So after Duquesne, you went into the military?
I went to law school then.
Or after law school, you went to
the military.
Yeah. And what caused you to do that?
Well, in college, I was in ROTC.
Oh, okay.
Back then, when I started college, everybody was required to take ROTC.
Wow.
And all the men, you could either take Army or Air Force ROTC. And I chose Army.
Okay.
And which is difficult to explain, but Army was at a different mindset than the Air Force. And so I did the first 2 years. It was just basically classes. And then I decided to go to get into the program for the commission, which you took 2 more years. So I took 4 years of ROTC, which meant lots of times that you'd be at school at 7 o'clock in the morning running or doing other things. And on your vacations, you would be going to places like Indiantown Gap in Camp Dawson, West Virginia. But I had thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it was a very good experience. I think even if you don't go on to the military, it gives you insight into the military mindset.
Okay. Then you were sent to Turkey?
No.
No.
Okay, first, I got out of Duquesne. And when I was in Duquesne, I was an intern in the city law department. And then between graduation and going into the Army, towards the end, like in November, they appointed me an assistant city solicitor, knowing full well I was going away.